Have you ever wondered how humans have become the most intelligent, advanced species on this earth that tripled our brain size in a short amount of time? How did we go from Homo erectus to what we are today as Homo sapiens? What if I told you that psychedelics may have played a role in this accelerated growth of evolution for human intelligence? You probably think I'm talking crazy, but there is an actual, well-respected theory out there that originated from the mind of the most popular psychonaut in modern times. The man I am speaking of is Terence McKenna. He was a consistent, outspoken advocate for the use of psychedelics, so much so that these drugs led him to create the idea of what we are going to go over today, the Stoned Ape theory.
Welcome to the world of Tales from the Trip.
Before we can get into the theory itself, we have to go over the man behind the madness and give a little backstory as to how he got to the point of the Stoned Ape theory. Terence McKenna was an ethnobotanist and a mystic who was born in the small town of Paonia, Colorado on November 16, 1946. At the young age of 14, he was already very interested in the human mind and psychology of the brain. At the same age, he first became introduced to magic mushrooms while reading a photo essay from 1957 in Life magazine titled "Seeking the Magic Mushroom." This piece featured the works of Robert Gordon Wasson, who was an author, mycologist, and vice president for public relations at J.P. Morgan & Company. The essay included his experience on magic mushrooms while at a Mazatec ritual in Mexico. The experience of Wasson and photographer Alan Richardson was later described as the first white men in recorded history to eat the divine mushrooms. Anyone who read this piece in Life magazine, especially McKenna, who was 14, would definitely want to learn more about magic mushrooms and their effects, and that's exactly what it did. He later went on to read more publications like The Doors of Perception and Heaven and Hell, both published by Aldous Huxley, to further increase his interest into the world of psychedelics. Although he was first interested in mushrooms, one of his earliest documented psychedelic experiences around the age 16 came from morning glory seeds. These seeds contain the chemical LSA, which is basically the sister chemical to LSD. Both produce similar, but also very different effects. After taking these seeds and experiencing a full-blown trip, he was quoted as saying, "There was something there worth pursuing." In 1965, McKenna enrolled at the University of California, Berkeley. Here, he was introduced to cannabis, followed by LSD shortly after from Barry Melton. During his tenure there, he studied shamanism and traveled to Jerusalem, where he met his longtime partner, Kathleen Harrison, who was also an ethnobotanist. He later graduated in 1975 with a bachelor's degree in ecology, conservation, and shamanism. After getting himself involved with the heavy use of LSD, LSA, and cannabis, he and his brother Dennis, who were very close and nearly inseparable as kids, got interested in one of the most powerful drugs on Earth, DMT. Terence coined it as the holy grail of mind-bending substances. DMT was exactly the substance McKenna was looking for. He got so intrigued from the mind-altering visuals he discovered on it, seeing strange entities and aliens of some sort in alternate realities. These self-transforming machine elf creatures were speaking in a colored language, which condensed into rotating machines that were like Faberge eggs, but crafted out of luminescent, superconducting ceramics and liquid crystal gels. The use of DMT is what made him interested in shamanism in the first place. Wanting to research more into the spirit molecule, he and his brother traveled to the Amazon in search of ukui, or scientifically known as Anadenanthera peregrina. The beans in this plant contain up to 0.04% of 5-MeO DMT and 0.16% of DMT. These are both very light doses of these chemicals, so you would need to do a lot to feel an effect. Anyways, they went on their way to try and find the plant. Arriving at the community of La Chorrera in South America, who home the Witoto Indians, they later discovered that what they ended up going there for did not end up with what they left with. They found fields jam-packed with psilocybin mushrooms. Finding these gems changed the way they looked at their planned expedition for DMT. This discovery by the McKenna brothers would forever alter their lives and many others around the world. They both learned how to cultivate these substances from the farmers in South America. They brought them back to the United States, specifically psilocybe cubensis. With the knowledge they gained, they developed a cultivation technique for anyone who was interested in growing the mushrooms. This was groundbreaking at the time, as no one had a clue on how to perform such a task. To share their wonderful idea to the masses, they created a book titled Psilocybin: Magic Mushroom Grower's Guide. You can get this book and many others by McKenna online. By the way, I'm not advocating you get them on Amazon. You know damn well Jeff Bezos barely pays his own employees, so why would he give me any? Maybe find the books at a smaller business that you live close to. Try to avoid letting that greedy, soulless mutt get any money from you. Anyway, I'm getting carried away. Fuck Jeff Bezos. Terence McKenna has written many books in his lifetime, and you should check some of them out, especially if you are interested in psychedelics. Throughout the years, gaining all this knowledge on psychedelics and the benefits they have, he decided to start doing lectures speaking on the topic of these substances. and presented his ideas to fascinated listeners. If he was not the most popular person to lead the psychedelic movement, then he definitely became one after doing these public speaking events. His main focus, of course, were psilocybin mushrooms, but he did not forget the other drugs that led him here, like DMT, LSD, ayahuasca, and cannabis. Not only did he speak on psychedelics, he also lectured people about shamanism, alchemy, culture, evolution, and even virtual reality and artificial intelligence. This man was truly ahead of his time. McKenna continued to do these lectures and write more books until his untimely death from brain cancer in the year 2000. There is so much more we can talk about in regards to Terence McKenna and his heavy influence on modern society. I do recommend a YouTube channel, We Plants or Happy Plants. They basically have the whole catalog from Terence McKenna and upload multiple times per week. I'm sure a lot of you were familiar with him before watching this, but if you had no clue who he was, then I definitely recommend their channel. More so if you are an avid psychonaut. I will put a link to their channel in the description of this video. Now that we've summarized Terence McKenna's long life into just one segment of a video, let's move on to the crazy world of the Stoned Ape theory. You can call it the Stoned Ape theory or the Stoned Ape Hypothesis, I do not care, but theory rolls off the tongue a little smoother, so I will be calling it that instead. The Stoned Ape theory came from one of McKenna's many books he has published in his life. The book was published in 1992 and is titled Food of the Gods. This thought-provoking book talks about a lot of topics, but we are just going to focus on this theory. In this book, McKenna proposed the reason behind the accelerated evolution from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens, what we are today. McKenna believes that at some point in our ancestral timeline, we discovered psilocybin cubensis while searching for food. According to McKenna, climate change played a big role in how our ancestors got their nutrition. In Africa, they went from starting in forests to ending up in grasslands, and the animals around them were grass-eating herbivores. Yes, they did kill and eat the animals that surrounded them, but what do you think these animals did with the food they digested? It had to come out of them at some point, right? Magic mushrooms like to grow out of manure, and it would make perfect sense that these mushrooms grew in the excrements of these animals. Now, I know today, you probably wouldn't want to grab something growing out of an animal's feces, but just think, our ancestors were not as intelligent as we are today, but we were always omnivores, which means we can eat any kind of food and don't have any specific diet to tend to, unless you make that choice yourself. When our ancestors saw these mushrooms growing in their poop, they were definitely interested in trying them. A wild animal is always striving for two things, food and sex, so that is basically what we were doing. You have to find ways to survive and let these nutrients get inside you, so you can do those two things regularly. When our ancestors tried these mushrooms, they noticed something a little strange after ingesting them. What happened to them after taking low doses of these poop-covered mushrooms was that they improved visual acuity, particularly edge detection. What this did to our ancestors changed the way we hunted for food and improved majorly at doing so. The low dose of psilocybin could detect prey rather quickly and avoid predators who were trying to kill them. The enhanced vision they got from the mushrooms made them better equipped to be skilled hunters compared to the individuals who were not consuming the psilocybin. Being a better hunter resulted in an increase of food supply, which led to a higher rate of reproductive success. Being a skilled hunter was not the only thing that improved though. At slightly higher doses, the sexual arousal the individuals would get led to a higher attention level, increased energy, and erections in males. The feeling of arousal made it easier to create offspring, which benefits the evolutionary system for a species regardless. The increase of sexual activity led the individuals to craving it more and more, so everyone around came together as a community and had group sexual activities, or as we like to call it now, an orgy. The increase of sexual activity and offspring being created gave them all the power in the world. What our ancestors learned so far from the psychedelic mushroom was that it benefited them if they ingested it, and most likely gave it to their kids and individuals who have not yet tried it. Once word got around about these magical mushrooms, I'm sure the whole surrounding area soon started taking these to get to the level of the individuals who were becoming more skilled and intelligent from ingesting them. Another advancement our ancestors experienced from ingesting psilocybin, and at even higher doses, was becoming more creative, increasing activity in the language-forming regions of the brain, causing visions and even music. Terence also believed that it could have dissolved one's ego and contributed to the development of religion. Could you imagine what our ancestors thought of what they were seeing from these mushrooms? Just imagine being an intelligent species, learning about a mushroom that could cause these effects without prior knowledge. We know what they do to us nowadays because we've been doing them long enough to tell stories about our trips. It's like when people in 1895 went to see the movie The Arrival of a Train and were completely shocked, thinking the train was actually going to come out of the movie screen, but then realized it was just a movie after it did not come out. In the present day, watching that movie is just like, okay, there's a train, so what? We're not affected by the surprise like people back then were, because we've been watching movies for almost 130 years now. That's how I picture our ancestors reacting to the mushrooms for the first time. Just think about what was going through their head. Visualizing fractals everywhere, colors becoming more vibrant and saturated, becoming more innovative, an increase in creativity, becoming more empathetic and courageous. Just by eating these mushrooms that came from manure was contributing to all these new, unforeseen benefits. There is an interesting quote from Terence's brother Dennis from the documentary Fantastic Fungi explaining the logic behind the Stoned Ape theory. It was like a software to program this neurologically modern hardware to think, to have cognition, to have language. Because language is essentially synesthesia. Language is the association with apparently meaningless sound, except that it's associated with the complex of meaning. I definitely believe psilocybin mushrooms played a huge role in evolution. There is scientific evidence that proves mushrooms were in the diet of 23 different primates, humans included. There was actually a fossilized fungi found by paleobiologist Corentin Laurent that was 1 billion years old. I find that to be just completely insane, but it only proves to people that these magic mushrooms have been around for a very, very long time. In 2017, the Stoned Ape theory was brought back into the limelight through a mycologist named Paul Stamets. Paul was a speaker at the Psychedelic Science Conference and brought up the theory in front of a huge and intrigued audience. Stamets states, "I present this to you because I want to bring back the concept of the Stoned Ape Hypothesis. What is really important for you to understand is that there was a sudden doubling of the human brain 200,000 years ago. From an evolutionary point of view, that's an extraordinary expansion, and there is no explanation for this sudden increase in the human brain." This was brought up by Stamets because there was new research going on in regards to psychological benefits from taking psychedelic drugs in controlled environments and microdosing. Stamets doesn't say that the theory is true, but it is very plausible, with his imagination and belief rising towards the concept of this whole idea. After Stamets was done talking about the theory, the audience went wild and erupted in cheers. So as crazy as this theory is, there is no denying that it is loved by many, including myself. Now, of course, not everyone believes this crazy idea. This was met with a lot of criticism by scientists through the years that just don't seem to believe magic mushrooms were the root cause of accelerated human evolution. It would be easy to believe that these psychedelics cause the human brain to triple in size, advance in sexual relations, and even create religion. But that's just not the case, according to the scientists. One problem that arises is that these mushrooms seem to be very rare in the part of Africa where McKenna said the evolution from Homo erectus to the Homo sapiens took place. If there were no mushrooms there, then how would this have happened? The psilocybe cubensis mushrooms tend to grow in hot and humid climates. The African savanna is hot, yes, but it is not humid. This can be argued with, however, because the psilocybe cubensis mushroom may not have been the one that jump-started this evolution of enlightened consciousness. Another problem scientists have is that there is a lack of evidence in regards to the correlation between magic mushrooms and sexual arousal. Even if there was, that doesn't mean it would automatically give you some sort of evolutionary advantage. Although, in my opinion, I believe it does, because the more you're having sex gives more chances for offspring to arise, and after a couple hundred years, you can have a whole colony of individuals from just a small sample size, depending on how often the intercourse is taking place. Their argument, though, believes that the increase in sexual arousal doesn't always lead to mating, which I can see being true. In another argument, McKenna mistakenly cited from an article that mushrooms improved visual acuity, when in reality, it actually talked about how the mushrooms changes perception, but not stating exactly that it makes it better or clearer. In the paper, the authors state the changes caused by the compound may not be conducive to the survival of the organism. This idea goes completely against McKenna's original thought that these mushrooms made us better hunters. The stoned ape theory can be summarized as being the catalyst for rapidly increasing human evolution at a rate that seems unheard of. The ingestion of these mushrooms over the many years increased sexual reproduction and advantage in hunting, being more imaginative and creative, jump-starting roots in religion, and many, many more advancements. While there is some criticism to this theory, it cannot be overlooked. While it may seem crazy at first, it might not come off that way after doing your research and really thinking about it. I'm no scientist or even a mycologist, but I've done my fair share of psychedelics over the years, and I could tell you that most of McKenna's ideas he brought up for this hypothesis seem very legitimate. Remember, this man was the king of psychedelics and based his whole life around them up until the day he died. It's like how an NBA player has been playing the game of basketball since they were a kid, so they should know the game pretty well compared to others. That's how McKenna is in regards to psychedelic substances. In my most humble opinion I can give on this, I do believe that some of this is true. I do not believe eating mushrooms was the root cause of the insane advancement in evolution. I do think that it was definitely a small part of it, though. I feel like if evolution was a jigsaw puzzle, and you were trying to find that missing piece to complete it, the stoned ape theory would be that last piece to finish it. There is seriously so much information on McKenna and this theory that I could cover, but I just wanted to give a basic outline of his life and the theory itself. I might have missed a couple components, but I got the gist of it for the most part. This is my first video like this that I have done, and hopefully I can make many more in the future. This is definitely something to think about if you do take psychedelics. I am not condoning the use of them, but me telling you to take or not to take them is not going to change the decision that you will end up making. The next time you are under the influence, or even sober, think about this theory and try to grasp the knowledge of this whole concept and choose if you think this theory is legitimate or if it's just a bunch of BS. Let me know in the comments what you think about this theory and if you believe it or not. I can't wait to hear what you all have to say. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already if you enjoyed this video. Check out the other content I have on my channel and let me know if you like these style of videos. It took me a while to research and make this video, so I hope you can appreciate the work I've put into this. So, were our brains really wired the way they are from eating mushrooms that came from feces? That's for you to decide. That's just so crazy to even fathom that. This has been the Trip Keeper from Tales from the Trip. I hope you all find love and comfort within yourselves and continue to enjoy this wonderful life that was given to you. Never take any day for granted and continue to be yourself. I hope you have a wonderful day and please stay safe.